Hello and welcome to our webinar around securing your peace of mind. Today we'll be taking an in-depth look at our cybersecurity measures. My name is Jack Hartwig, Marketing Manager at the Berwin Group. Today, our hosts are Dan Urson, our Director of Software Engineering, and Jeff Anderson, our National Sales Manager. On our agenda, we'll provide an update around our recent advancements around cybersecurity. We'll touch on some regulatory guidelines and how our security program stacks up. We will then get into upcoming features and our future plans, followed by a Q&A portion. I'm going to hand things over to Dan here to, before we get into the agenda, talk about why all this matters and give you an overview of what we're looking at here.
Thank you, Jack. Very excited to speak to all of you today. As Jack said, I'm Dan Urson, the Director of Software Engineering. I oversee the software application teams that build all the back-end processing for the suite products that we're going to be talking about today. It's fun for us to present on this topic because we spend all day, every day, figuring out how to make these things tighter, more secure, and more effective, more performant for the applications you depend on. So thank you for taking the time to join us. It's fun for us to speak about this. One of the key headlines I want to point out is how cybersecurity events and security issues are on the rise across all industries. This is not something localized to financial or to business, or to any industry in particular. So it's something that all industries are being faced with now. This is due to a number of factors. Technology is improving. We've all heard of this thing called AI that's coming around. So there are some common sense protections that every organization and every vendor that you're working with should be implementing. And there's some more advanced protections that we'll talk a bit about today. In the Suite series of products, the key initiative here is continuous innovation. We realize that no one security protection is going to be enough for today and the future, and so we implement layers upon layers of security initiatives, and we're constantly enhancing those. So I hope throughout today's talk you can see the many layers that we have in our security platform and how we don't rely on any one of them. It's the combination of all these things that really allow you to feel comfortable with the performance and the security of how we're handling data.
Perfect. I think that's over to me.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. All right, Dan. So as Dan mentioned, the layers of security, we don't have nearly as many layers to the solutions that we offer, but we do have layers to our solutions. So as you can see on the screen here, a couple of things. First off, the headline, protecting your data is our top priority. In order for us to do well and do well for all of our clients, we need to ensure that your data is as safe as possible and provide as many layers as possible to that security. So from a what it means to you standpoint, clients doing business with us are utilizing our Suite, which the bottom line, the foundational aspects of the Suite are our death audit solution, which is a leading solution proven to identify deaths that no other solution can. Our Search to help with locating lost and missing participants and providing levels of documentation and important participant-specific audit trails. And then our BeneSearch, which is our beneficiary research solution. Now, all of those together, combined with some other aspects and tools that we utilize for the top line there, which is our Census solution, which is one solution that does it all for you. From a death audit standpoint, a workflow into your beneficiary research, locating lost and missing participants. There are mailing participant communication aspects that do come into play with Census. And ultimately at the center, participant-specific documentation, compliance, and reporting with that solution. Now, what's really important to understand is in order for us to provide best-in-class results, we need a level of data from our clients to administer that information and provide those results back to you. So that's really where the rubber hits the road here from a security standpoint. You're providing PII to us. We're providing results and information back to you. And as Dan's going to take you through here, the importance of what we're doing and how we're doing it all matters, because this is certainly a sort of a team sport, right? We're working together to ensure that we keep your data safe. So Jack, with the next slide here, I think what we're going to talk about is some of the layers and how we talk about those. So between our encryption, retention, and the database. So I'm going to let Dan get into more detail with that.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy to do that. So as Jeff was describing, we need to talk a little bit about how you feel comfortable using the Service Census and sort of suite products in your own workflows. So I want to talk about a few of these pieces and do a little bit of background and definitions. Some of these terms you may hear all over the place, and maybe you feel like it's too late to ask what they mean. Let's take just a moment to make sure we all understand what we're talking about here. We'll talk with the word encryption. Encryption is a means why you can scramble data and be able to transfer it safely or store it safely, so that nobody can come and intercept that data and read it in its plain form. An important piece about encryption is that it can be decrypted. So it's something that customers might encrypt a file before they send it to us, and then we decrypt it on our side in order to make use of it. Or on the other way, after we finish generating a report for you on the most recent dev audit results, we can encrypt that for you and send it back. So encryption is a process for scrambling data to protect it while it's in transit. Let's talk a bit about how we use encryption. Jeff was saying, in order to use our products, let's take CertiDev, for example. You might need to transfer a bit of your population to us to continuously monitor that population for you. So a common workflow for our customers is they could transfer a file either through our secure web portal or through automation with a secure file transfer protocol, SFTP. A really exciting feature that we offer on the web portal is to be able to encrypt the file for you prior to it leaving your computer, so that that file never leaves your safe zone on your computer on an unencrypted state. That's a really exciting feature for our customers that don't have the sophistication to set up an automation step or to do the encryption themselves. That sounds complicated, so we take care of that hard part for you. In fact, on the web portal, prior to when you select a file to send to us, we can detect, is this file encrypted or not? If it is not encrypted, we encrypt it for you, so that while the file is sent to us and is being stored, it is encrypted at all times. Even further, once a file gets to us in any state, we again detect, is it encrypted or is it not? So at least 3 different places in our application layer, we're detecting, is this file encrypted? And if it's not, encrypt it now for the protection of yourself and how we can store that data more efficiently. At the top, I described this concept of baseline security and exceptional security. There's a line at the bottom of the encryption piece that says files are encrypted in transit and at rest. That's been the case for all businesses that are worth their salt for the past 5 or 10 years. And of course, we do that as well. When your file is transferring over the internet, over the wire, it's encrypted with HTTPS and SSL, common encryption layers used in the industry. And when it's stored in a secure data storage area, it's encrypted there at the disk layer as well. We see that as a baseline piece of security, and of course we implement that and have for many years. And that's something you should see in any vendor you consider working with. Some of the additional and exceptional layers we have is that extra layer of encryption that we use on top that I was describing before. That allows you to feel comfortable with, well, where is my file encrypted and where is it not? The answer is it's encrypted everywhere, often with 2 or 3 different levels of encryption. And now let's talk a bit about retention. So great, I've got your file, we are loading it into our process. We've done exceptional matching for you and gotten back the depth results that help you make important decisions for your business. We retain that information for as limited amount of time as possible. In fact, as soon as that file is done being loaded into our system, it's purged entirely from the data storage area. So we have many different places where as soon as data is not required anymore, we clean it up for you. That's something that we have documented in our WSTIC profiles we'll be discussing later. And then all of these things we'll be describing. You won't need to refer back to these presentations to have questions of it. We have all of this very well documented in our WSTIC profile for all the questions that your security, compliance, legal teams might need to answer in the future. So don't worry if you're not tracking each of these detailed pieces. This is all encoded as well in our WSTIC security profile we'll discuss later. And finally, the database. We talked about the files themselves that get sent to us. We talked about what we do cleaning up after that. But then, of course, while we're processing your data, we are storing that data in a database to do exceptional matching against that data. We've always adhered to the highest security standards for the database level protection, fancy networking isolation, access controls, all kinds of great things that are industry standard and above. What's really exciting that we're going to speak to a bit later at the end is a field level encryption feature that we're adding to our database layer within the coming weeks that will allow each customer's data to be encrypted uniquely for them. Rather than have one encryption key for all customers, each customer's data will be uniquely encrypted just for them. We will also be able to support a concept where a customer could want to maintain their own encryption key, and that we have to ask permission to use it. That's called a hold your own key or a bring your own key approach. Some customers may find that very attractive, but for any of our customers that don't want to take that level of sophistication and we can take care of it for them, we will offer that as a baseline. So I'm excited to share with you some of the details about that in some of the slides that are coming up. Across the industry, you'll find that many companies will sell you a solution, and the very next thing they'll do is charge you extra to secure it. We think that's ridiculous. We want to offer these security stances as a baseline for our products. And that's why on our web portals, we offer free and default multi-factor authentication. That means in order to log in, it's not enough to simply have a username and password. You also need to have access to an email address or a text message or an authenticator application of some sort to further protect that you are who you say you are. Even beyond that is single sign-on. Perhaps you work for an organization that doesn't want you to have another username and password. We all have enough of those. Single sign-on is a way that we can integrate with your identity provider, whether it's Windows or Microsoft Azure, any authentication provider we can interact with for single sign-on so that you can use your own organization's authentication to access our applications. The beauty of single sign-on is that if somebody is terminated from your company or leaves, they would lose access immediately as soon as your organization turns off their access. No need to reach out to us. You can control that entirely from your side. So we're very pleased to offer multi-factor authentication as a default and single sign-on as a free service, because we believe that that shouldn't be an extra. You should never have to choose between a price point and getting the security that you need. We will do that for you at no charge. At this point, we're going to read through every single one of these bullet points in excruciating detail and talk about all the ways that the Department of Labor has suggested that we might secure data and the types of things you should enforce on your vendors. I'm just kidding. We're not really going to do that. We make it simple for you. Jeff, could you tell us a little bit about why we make it simple?
Yeah, absolutely. So working with clients across the country, and it really doesn't matter if it's in the private space, the public pension space, where we're at, everyone has policies and procedures that they have developed that they're holding themselves to. Sometimes a smaller organization may be looking at, they may adopt, so you showed the DOL page that was pretty busy on the slide before, right? They may look at that and say, okay, this is what we're going to look at exactly. Others may use that as a guiding light for how they build their policies and procedures and what they care about. So this is a consistent conversation as a sales team. My group is working with clients across the country to understand not just what their business needs are, but from a security standpoint, what they care about and how they need to speak to their process for checking out their vendors and who they're working with, right? So that's where we, Dan, you mentioned a few times earlier our WISTIC profile, right? So we house all of our information in a third-party resource called WISTIC, which makes it very, very easy for our clients to be able to read through and understand our cybersecurity policies, as well as our entire vendor information package. So it includes details up to and including our employee handbook. a very simple process, and the goal of that is to make sure that no matter what an individual entity's policies and procedures may be, they can look into what ours is to get the answers that they need, to check the box and understand, are we meeting their requirement, or do they need to understand more what we're doing and how we're doing it. So while the DOL may be the guiding light for many of our clients, it may not be the only thing that they're looking at, right? Sometimes it's more comprehensive than that. And so through the layers of security that we provide and the ease of access to be able to review and understand that security, that's where we're really trying to help move the process along when someone is evaluating what we do and how we do it. We've also got a team of people available that when needed can answer those types of questions that may not be coming out of the WSTIC profile and that information. But I will say this, as someone who's been interacting with companies, public pensions, private, across the country for the last 4 years, the fact that we utilize this WSTIC profile has really made my job easier, because being able to give someone that level of access to find the answers to their questions, to read in black and white what we do and how we do it, has really made it much easier to me, right? The last thing I want to do is speak to something where I may not be technically where I need to be to speak to that answer, and WSTIC makes that simple.
Yeah, to further some of what Jeff's saying there, that's just it. Let's make it simple. And we looked at that overwhelming list of Department of Labor recommendations. And the point is that you in your current role may not need to know the answer to 100% of those. You might have your legal team that cares about a portion, and your operations team cares about another portion. You have different layers of folks in your organization that care about those pieces. We have answers to all of those, and we present them through WSTIC. To add on to what Jeff was saying of what we have out there, we have our current certifications. So we are SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We do that on an annual basis. If you're not familiar, SOC 2 is a certification looking at our operating procedures and our security level. And the Type 2 validates that we are doing this over a full year period. The Type 1 SOC 2 audit only covers a short time, a short window. So it's possible that a company could do a really good job for a few weeks while being audited and then let things go. We always do the Type 2, which means they're being audited over a full year, no gaps. You feel very secure about that we're following these policies all year long. We also have some pre-built questionnaires. Every customer is going to have a different version of the questions that they want to ask, depending on what parts that they're feeling sensitive about. So we have some pre-built questionnaires that walk through the most common ways that we see that to help you simplify that process. Of course, we also have business policies, employee handbooks, business continuity plans, our proof of insurance. And so those are all different things that areas of your organization might find very helpful, and we find it reduces friction. We prefer to be upfront with all these policies and make sure that you aren't getting a different answer, email request asking this person or that. The answers are all very clear. It's written out in our policies, and as those policies change and are enhanced, we update that one place in WSTIC, and you can always refer back to that at any time if you get further questions down the road from your security or compliance teams. Raising the bar. The concept here is that we always want to be enhancing the security platform that we had. And data consolidation is an important part of that. The Certicensus product that Jeff was describing at the top is an exceptional way for all the products that we offer, best in class, but in a way of doing that that doesn't require you to send that data multiple times to a vendor. You might find that you can do a death audit with a vendor, send that data over to another vendor to find out about address updates. You might want to contact somebody else to send mailings. And now you've just sent your data out to 3 different companies. To help you adhere to what the Department of Labor recommends and to simplify your own process, we offer these services an end-to-end solution making sure that you don't need to send this to multiple places. You can trust the way that we're going to store this data securely, and you won't need to transfer it multiple times to multiple vendors to keep your data consolidated and keep it secure. At this point, I want to give you a little more of a preview into what we're building out on the encrypted database project that I mentioned before. We talked a bit about what encryption means, and that's this concept of scrambling so that the data can be unscrambled later by an authorized party. And we talked about the database layer, and I alluded to the fact that each customer, their data would be uniquely encrypted. So I have an example of a very simplified version of what a database might look like, kind of like an Excel sheet. And I have two customers' data in there. There's Acme Corporation and Wayne Enterprises. And so in this scenario, we have two different customers' data in the same data set. And you can imagine in an Excel sheet, it's all just plain text there. If ever somebody got access to this imaginary Excel sheet, that'd be hazardous, because you can do all you want to protect the Excel sheet, but at that moment, they've got it in their hands. They could read that data in plain text. What we're going to be releasing in the coming weeks not only separates this data, but makes it unreadable. Even if there were direct access to the database, the data that's in it is encrypted in the way that it's stored, not just in an obscure way in some data warehouse, in a server farm somewhere else. I'm talking about the actual data. If you were to query it, looks like this. It's scrambled up in a way that even the engineering team can't read it. It's only at the application layer. When the data is requested, at that last possible moment, is it decrypted for use in reporting or in matching applications. And as soon as the data is written to the database, before it goes in there, it's encrypted at that layer as well. That's what I was describing as an exceptional layer of protection. Many companies will offer encryption in transit, meaning while the data is moving. Encryption at rest, meaning on some hard drive somewhere in a server farm, that data is encrypted. Of course, we do that as well. And we have exceptional network protections around this data. This database field level encryption means each individual field themselves is encrypted, and it's per customer. We're indicating that in this diagram here with the blue color relating to the Acme company and the orange color relating to Wayne Enterprises. Even if they have the same values, those data look completely different when they're stored in the database because each customer has their own unique encryption key. Upon release, we will support this for every customer, no additional cost, and we will manage these keys for you. We will always adhere to the highest security standards of what those keys look like, but if you want to go above and beyond, in the coming weeks after this, we will start to reach out to customers that might be interested in holding their own key or bringing their own key so that they can tweak and dial the security protections that their teams deem as the most important. This is an exceptional level of protection that won't be found in many places in the industry, and we think you all should be very excited about it. We certainly are. In order to accomplish this, we've spent months of time re-engineering our applications to use this concept of using the encrypted data first, segmenting that sensitive PII into its own special data store with even further protections than we've already had with our database layer. So we're very excited to offer this. And again, to reiterate, this is not an add-on. This is not a cost that you can bring into your contract. We will do this for you at no additional cost because we think it's the right thing to do. So look for announcements from Jack and the marketing team there on the release of this. We're very excited to release it and for the future security enhancements that allows us to do going forward. Beyond the database layer protections, we're always trying to enhance our platform and our products. We hear feedback from customers about, I love your services. You do the best death audit that we can find across all the vendors that offer this. But we really don't want to send you some of this PII that you're asking for. Social security number is a great example. So we're investigating ways right now that we could accept data from our customers without some of these key fields, a reduced or a low PII solution to give you the same level of results and comfort with the results, but not require you to send this data. These are things that we're constantly investing in, and look for announcements from the teams in the weeks and months to come as we look at that. If you have a use case that you'd like to share with us that would help us understand how to better serve you, please bring that to us, bring it to somebody on Jeff's team, and we would love to explore that with you and how we can serve you better in that space. I also said at the top of this conversation that cybersecurity incidents are on the rise, and there are more and more complicated ways that companies need to deal with that. With our security and compliance team, I work with them daily on what are the questions that we're getting from customers, what kind of regulatory requirements are they under, and how can we stay a step or two ahead of those so that we're not catching up, we're leading the way so that customers know what questions to ask. The education piece is clear. It's the most important way that we can protect your data is to be asking the right questions and to encourage you to ask us those questions as well. So we welcome your questions about how we're protecting data, ways that we're being innovative to stay ahead of that. We think it's an important way to lead the industry, and we're excited to do it.
Great stuff, Dan. I am definitely excited for that and for those conversations with clients. I had the pleasure of attending the PRISM conference. I have to be careful with how I say that because I had some people look at me and say, "You went to PRISM?" No. The PRISM conference, which is an IT conference that takes place in April or in every spring. And some of the ways that we're sharing the layers of security and what we're doing and how we're doing it was there were several comments made with the level of transparency that we're offering with how we're doing what we're doing, not just through WISTIC, but through documents that we're able to share. We've got that 2-page PDF document that speaks to those layers, and I'm excited for some of the things you've talked about here to be added to that document from a conversational standpoint with our clients as well as with our prospective clients. I think it's also important you mentioned from a cost standpoint. So we do not have a sales conversation about a solution with someone and then have an additional conversation with them at any point about, oh, you want this layer of security or you want that layer of security, right? We're providing the layers of security that we provide and the options that you talked about, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, things like that. We're not charging additional fees for those types of features. So I think that's absolutely a really important point to make throughout here. Another thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking that I failed to highlight as I talked about our solutions in relation to the security is the proactive stance that we're taking, right? The solutions that we're providing, we've done what we can do to be proactive with providing our clients with the best possible results, but we're also doing what we can do to be proactive, and you illustrated that in the previous slides with looking forward to the future and with what more can we do to be proactive and put us all in the best possible position. So fantastic information. I'm excited about the future of all of this.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for that. We're going to move into the Q&A portion right now, and just a couple of questions to get us started here. Any extra clarity around, if someone's going out and evaluating a vendor, what would you consider to be enough in terms of a cybersecurity process, as well as what questions would you ask a vendor to, kind of dig in, and what areas would you focus those questions on?
Yeah, I could start with that one. What I would recommend anybody looking for a vendor in this space, if you ask a security-related question or a policy-related question, are you getting a response back that's an email off-the-cuff response from some account manager or a salesperson trying to answer your question in a way that makes you want to buy the product? Or are you getting a link to a policy document that explains explicitly what the rule is there? You should favor the explicit answers as much as possible because you might get a different answer the next time depending on who you ask. One of the best things you can do to protect yourself is make sure you're getting consistent answers in a validated policy document from a vendor you're going to work with. Beyond that, this moment is 2024, and things have changed a lot. Last year, the year before, 5 years ago, the cyber landscape that we're experiencing is dramatically different. So make sure that the vendor that you're looking at is doing the baseline for 2024, and then make sure that they're planning 2, 3, 5 years ahead. Things will change dramatically in years to come, so it's very difficult to predict some of that, but there are some common sense pieces that we've discussed throughout this conversation that are just baseline table stakes that all vendors should be working with. But I think the most important piece is, if you ask a policy question, are you getting the same answer every time through a verified policy document, or are you getting an off-the-cuff response from somebody who wants to sell you something?
Great. Great. So you mentioned that the landscape is evolving and changing, and I think that that is going to be consistent into the future here. A couple of hot topics out there around post-quantum encryption and AI. Are there any considerations around those two factors, and how they're influencing our strategic outlook as we move forward?
Oh my! How much time do we have, Jack? Let's talk about quantum encryption. So we talked about encryption before and what that means, scrambling data. The short version is that all the encryption mechanisms that we have today in the industry are based on math, and that some math is really hard to compute one way and very difficult to undo the other way. That's what most modern encryption is based off of. In the future, with the advancement of quantum computers, those types of encryption schemes will not be sufficient to protect against quantum type attacks. So any industry that's protecting PII will need to start addressing that. The areas where that's the most critical to be evolved is currently in long-term hardware solutions, because we don't expect that horizon to be for another 5 years, 10 next at max, maybe 5 to 10 years, where we're really expect to see some general purpose quantum computers. So automakers, people that are creating a vehicle that's going to be on the road for 10 plus years, right now it's very critical for them to have a plan because they don't have an opportunity to update their software systems. Right now in our space, we're exploring how we can best protect the data in a post-quantum world on the file levels, the database levels. That encrypted database piece I described, we're working to roll out the initial plan, and then of course layer on the post-quantum encryption plans as well. The National Institute for Security, NIST, has their own recommendations that they're issuing right now on a suggested basis to get ahead, but they'll be offering their own advanced, very specific recommendations that we will implement as soon as those are available. So the post-quantum encryption piece is something that we're already thinking about. It's a very rich topic that we welcome your questions on that as well. You mentioned AI. We use AI in our software development lifecycle to enhance the way our developers can do their jobs, but in a way that still goes through human review. We use some AI in the way that we extract information from obituaries to provide you the very best matching capabilities, but we don't use AI for making decisions about that data. So right now, one of the key pieces that we're aware of is on the state level and perhaps at the federal level at some point, there'll be restrictions to protect from bias for individual consumers against the risk of AI giving an answer that's favorable to one group and not to another. So we're very careful not to use AI in a way that could get you into any trouble or us with a state or federal regulator on whether or not using AI to make decisions about a participant. So all of our process, we have lots of automation, we have very sophisticated algorithms for scoring, but they're not based on artificial intelligence because we don't want to run afoul on any pieces there where we might have the perception of making a decision that's biased with some sort of AI.
Perfect. Well, those are really the only the questions that have come in at this point. So we, with that being wrapped up, if any more questions do arise, there is that post-webinar survey here where you can drop a question in there. If you're curious about any of the topics that we discussed in the webinar today, you can also mention that and we can follow up with you individually after if you'd like a more in-depth look at anything that we discussed. But with all that said, Jeff, Dan, thank you both so much for the cybersecurity overview and in-depth, the deep dive on all those topics. Thank you all in the audience for joining us here today, and we'll see you on the next one.